Push Fit Podcast in full effect. We are back. It's been a long time, guys. I have my guy, Brad Robinson, in here. Brad Robinson is one of my teammates. He's a family guy. He is one of the best health and wellness coaches in the Charlotte area, in the region. I'm glad to have him today. How you doing, Brad?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just give a little bit of background of what you do for the people out there.
Sure. So been in the health and wellness industry for 27 years now. I actually started when I was 16 years old, just working at a YMCA, helping people out on the fitness floor. When I saw people struggling with getting to their goals, most times it was because of nutrition. So I went and got certified as a nutritionist. And then I saw people having aches and pains in their bodies. I was referring those people out to other therapists. And I said, you know what? I've been training this person for 2 years. I might know their body a little bit better. So I went and got licensed as a massage therapist, help them get rid of the pain, increase their levels of performance and whatnot. And then all along through the years, you know, all the group fitness classes and all that, I did that. And then when I saw people struggling, most times it was because of the mindset. Once I got deeper into it, it was the mindset, it was the psychology. So I went and got licensed as a wellness coach to help people identify where it is they're trying to go to, what the obstacles are standing in the way, and then teach them how to create strategies to move around those obstacles so they keep getting changes and break through those plateaus that so many people hit. Okay.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. So, okay, you have a brand, Kaizen Energy, right?
Kaizen Energy, yes.
Kaizen Energy. Mm-hmm. Could you give a little backstory of where the name come from and how does that relates to, you know, what you're doing now?
Sure. So I used to have a business called Kaizen Promotions, and it was like, you know, health promotions. It's kind of confusing because I had friends of mine, they're like you in music or something, you know? Mm-hmm. So Kaizen Energy actually came to me, just sounds funny, but it came to me in a dream. I woke up one night and it's like I had the name Kaizen Energy in my head, right? And so it's kind of a play on words with Kaizen, the concept of Kaizen, that Japanese idea of continuous improvement, small step improvement. And the idea of synergy, right, where the whole is greater than just a sum of the parts, right? Kind of, you know, with teamwork, like you and I can accomplish more together than us individually could, right? So that's where it kind of came from. Kaizen, that Japanese word, is kind of the analogy I like to use is what happens to a cold rubber band that you pull too hard, too fast. Right. It breaks, right? So you warm that up and you gradually stretch that out. That's more of the Kaizen approach versus innovation, where we're changing all these things all at one time, right?
And so you actually were in the military, right?
Yes.
Has the military shaped the way you look at things as far as, you know, endurance, health, and everything like that?
Yeah, it definitely had an effect. I was already into, like, the health and wellness, like I said, since 16, and the military came during my health and wellness ventures, but the focus and the consistency that you get from, you know, being in the military, that's something that, like, you take that for the rest of your life, really, if you absorb it. So it definitely affected me. Mm-hmm.
And thank you for your service, by the way. You were a Marine.
Yes.
How long were you serving?
Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Right. Yeah. Right. How long did you serve?
I was 4 years. So 4 years. So basically, like, I started out as a DEPR, it's a delayed entry program. Mm-hmm. And so I would train with the Marines and everything. And funny thing is, I thought that I was like, I'm a Marine. I'm training with the Marines and whatnot on the weekends. Yeah. So I made the mistake of getting the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor tattoo on my shoulder when I went to boot camp. Oh, man, they gave me hell for that. They're like, what do you think you're doing? Get on your face right now. You think you're a Marine? Oh, no. Yeah, one drill instructor told me he was going to rip my arm off and give it to me when I graduated. Then he's like, F that. You'll never leave my island. I promise you that.
My God.
Yeah, he said that when somebody's getting punished up on the quarterdeck, you know, for, you know, all push-ups, sit-ups, all the walls, so on, he said, I needed to be up there earning this.
Right.
So, yeah.
Sheesh. Oh, my God. He said you're never getting off of his island.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because, you know, I love the Marines. You know, that's brotherhood. And anytime you see, it's kind of like a fraternity. If you ever, I don't know if you were in a fraternity or anything like that, but, like, you see somebody who's in your fraternity, you're like, oh, instant brotherhood, instant relationship. Mm-hmm. You know, you see another Marine, it's like, man, you went through what I went through. Right. So, like, we're instant bond.
Exactly.
And I heard somebody say one time that the Army and the Navy is run like traditional military, Air Force kind of somewhat like a corporation, and then the Marine Corps more like a cult. Because it's like, it's just tight knit.
It is tight knit.
It's tight knit.
I have one of my coworkers is a Marine, and he'll see someone. It's just like me looking at your ears, and I'm like, oh, okay, he must train or something like that. So it's like one of those knit things that we can kind of tell each other, who we are, type of thing.
Exactly. So the way sometimes a lot of the way you carry yourself, you know, we talk about in the military, we talk about bearing. And a lot of people don't even use the word bearing out and about, you know. But military bearing is like, how do you carry your body's carriage, right? Like how do you move? What's your posture like? You know, do you walk into a room with confidence, things like that? And so a lot of times I can look at somebody and be like, hey, were you in the military? Oh yeah, actually. And some people, every now and again, they kind of got that sense that they were in the military. I thought, Tom, I said, I'm surprised that you weren't in the military, Tom. I said, because you got kind of those military
characteristics.
Yeah, the characteristics.
Okay.
And with the military, it's funny because Army, Navy, Air Force, they say you were in the Army, you were in the Navy, you were in the Air Force, but you are a Marine. You know what I'm saying? It's funny.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's like something you embody, you know?
Man, I respect anybody that's ever, you know, I don't care what you did in the services. I respect and I 100%. Salute, because we, as people, don't realize the luxury of what you guys fought for, or what guys are still fighting for and protecting us every day. So to have these luxuries of us being here to talk to each other. So
absolutely,
I thank you every day. So Marsha, I've said this before in the beginning that me and you are teammates. How long have you been training martial arts?
Well,
how'd you get into it too?
How I got into it's funny because it's kind of linked up with the Kaizen thing. When I lived in France when I was 17, right? I was a Rotary International Youth Ambassador Scholarship. So I'd spent a year in France. And my third host family, I had 4 host families. My third host family lived up the street from this gymnasium. So I went there and I would train, and they had an option to do judo or, sumo wrestling. Right?
You didn't choose sumo? Nobody want to do sumo?
Listen, when I started high school, I was 5'5", 80 pounds.
Oh, my God.
By the time I was in France, I was probably about 140. Okay. And so I'm looking at myself. I'm like, well, I mean, they got smaller guys in there. Let me just stick to judo.
Right.
And so I did judo, and they had the idea of Kaizen, because this is Japanese art, you know, so it's that small step improvement. So I did judo while I was in France. That was my introduction to martial arts. We owned a video store when I was a kid, so I would watch all these martial arts films and everything. My idol was Bruce Lee and whatnot. But judo was my introduction to it, and that was 95, 96.
And you just were hooked to it ever since. And how'd you get into like the whole grappling aspect of it, like, you know, jiu-jitsu? Well, judo is.
Well, they had grappling in there. You know, it's the different rule set.
Yeah.
You know, you're more focused on the throws, and if you get somebody thrown and they land flat, match is over. If they land on their side or on their hip or whatever, then you grapple around for a little bit. Exactly. But it's like 30 seconds or whatever. If nothing's happening, they're going to stand you back up again. But so that was my introduction. I studied jiu-jitsu back in 2005 was my introduction to jiu-jitsu, right? I studied with a couple of guys, Brandon Powell. He's got his own place. Anthony Cortopella, he teaches at Charlotte Krav Maga. I think Brandon Powell's got dojo in downtown Charlotte. But so I started with those guys at a place called the Athletic Club South End. And I would just go in there, you know, a couple times a week. I loved it, fell in love with it, did my first tournament and whatnot. So I did it for about 6 to 9 months or something. And then some of their gyms changed up, and I pulled back, you know, had kids and whatnot. You know, all the time that I had outside of work was devoted to my kids. So took about a 10-year break before really getting back into it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So you were doing this for a long. Well, you were doing it before. I say that to anybody that's doing it before. You know, martial arts was cool. You know, like the MMA in that sense was cool. Like people were doing that stuff in like gyms like small gyms with just mats like this. You know, before you were doing it before anything was cool, and that's a pretty cool aspect of it.
And in the Marines, you know, we would have little fight club things and whatnot. So it's like the movie Fight Club, but not so drama and Hollywood. But like it was literally like you got a circle of guys, and you got 2 guys that get in the middle, and you're just duking it out and whatever, wrestling, all that stuff, you know, because I did some close combat instruction when I was in the Marine Corps. So I was training in that, and it was in between what they had called the line training. It was like linear, inline, neurostable, something weird. That was before my time. And then they have the MICMAP program now, the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program.
That's what I was about to ask. What's that?
Yeah, it's a belted system. So that kind of came afterward. I was in the very beginning of those stages, you know, in close combat. So.
Okay. And the MAP teaches with weapons too. Am I correct? Or is it just
anything with the military they're going to have? Yeah. So I mean, if I looked at the black belt course, and it looks so fun, right? I mean, you're like swimming through the water, and then like you get out, and there's like 3 attackers coming on you. You know, like one guy might have a K-bar, you know, like a knife at the end of the gun or whatever. And he's trying to attack you with that, and you got to like take his weapon away and all this, and you know, and try not to get killed.
Right.
In the process, exactly. Like, there's like kill moves and stuff. They're like, boom, you're dead. You know, you fail.
Oh my gosh, man! That I think that's the pretty cool part, because you know we see some stuff in movies. I hate to get on this military tangent, but I think it's okay. I just think it's the coolest thing ever. But you see stuff in movies. Matter of fact, what is the most realistic movie that you like, military movie that you've seen?
Oh,
because you know it gets Hollywood. I don't even mean to take you down this rabbit hole.
My favorite and most realistic that I've seen. I know like Hollywood can get, you know, better cinematics and all the like the computer animations and whatnot makes things like you can see the bullet going into it, like you see the wound opening up and all that stuff. That's great. But Full Metal Jacket, Stanley Kubrick, right? Full Metal Jacket. That's probably one of my all-time favorite, if not the all-time favorite war movie. It's like 2 separate movies. There's like the first half of the movie where they're in boot camp, right? And that's the closest movie I've seen to what boot camp is actually like. And people say, oh, no, man, it couldn't have been as hard as like what they made it out in that Full Metal Jacket and how hard he was on those recruits and whatnot. No, it's much harder. That was one drill instructor, and he's in somebody's face, and he's, who do you think you are? You are lower than, you know, whale scum on the bottom of the ocean and blah, 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 right? Nah, man. It's 4 drill instructors.
On your ass.
Like, it sounds like barking dogs. Like, so your adrenaline response goes up big time. Like, and you just got to, like, I mean, when they saw that tattoo, they're like putting my, you know, skivvies, like, that's like your shorts or whatever, putting my skivvies over top of my head, you know, up in, like, spits going in your face and stuff, and, like, they're daring you to do something. Like,
fuck you up right now.
Right? You do something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, man, that I think that's just the prettiest cool. I think that all of that is, like, the coolest thing in the world to me. But going back onto the nutrition thing, what do you think most people miss, or what's the most common misconception about nutrition?
The misconception?
Yes.
Well, I do speaking engagements for a lot tied in with the USO. So I go and speak to different military bases and whatnot, and you know, some corporations as well. And so when I do these events, we have these events called Reset, right? We got the warrior resets, spouse resets, and family resets. They're all a little bit different. But I teach a seminar on nutrition, right? And so I give a little bit of the history of nutrition and how things kind of came about. And I don't know if you remember when you were a kid, the USDA food pyramid, right?
Yeah,
on the very base of that pyramid. Do you remember what it was?
Bread?
Yeah, bread, cereals, grains. Like, you remember how much?
No.
It's 6 to 11 servings, right? Just keep them coming. Let me get all those grains. And on the very top of that pyramid, it was fats and oils. Like, they didn't even tell us. It's just 0. A tiny little bit.
Yeah.
It was like, use sparingly.
Yeah.
I joke around. I'm like, I just remember as a kid, that was the first time I ever heard the word sparingly. And I haven't heard it a lot since then either. You know? Right. So, but really where that came from was a researcher named Ansel Keys. And he noticed that in 7 different areas of the globe, that people had a higher propensity for heart disease. And he also noticed that in those areas, they ate higher levels of fat. So he deduced in his mind, well, they eat higher levels of fat, they have more heart disease. And he has some really good connections in politics and whatnot, and especially in the U.S. Department of Agriculture. hence the USDA food pyramid. So a lot of that came from a lot of that research. But in the mid-90s, some researchers started looking, and this is at Harvard School of Public Health, right? Dr. Walter Willett, he came out with a book called Eat, Drink, and Be Healthy, and then a lot of other research started noticing this stuff too. They looked back at Ansel Keys' research, and they said, okay, yeah, true. They ate higher levels of fat. They had more heart disease, but they also ate high levels of carbohydrates, and they were also drinkers, and they were also smokers. So if you're not isolating the variable, you're not doing really good research, right? You know, if you study research, you know that there's a correlation, and a correlation is not causation. Just because there's a connection with something doesn't mean that it caused it, right? So Walter Willett, in that book, all those researchers basically flipped it upside down. The healthy eating pyramid came out, and the base of the pyramid is half of it is organic grains, right? So the original one didn't differentiate between like a quinoa and bunny bread. You know what I'm saying? So half of it is organic grains, and half of it is fats and oils, right? Then you got, various things, fruits and vegetables. You want to get at least your 5 to 9 servings a day and a couple servings of dairy or meat and whatnot. But then at the top of it, it's not fats and oils anymore. It's the white trash. It's the sugar. It's the white rice, the white potatoes, right? And then outside of the pyramid, they've got a multivitamin, right? That's your nutritional insurance. If you got to try to eat all of your nutrients through your food, you're going to be eating 5,000 to 7,000 calories a day. Right. I mean, even if you shopped in the outside aisles of the grocery store, eating all organic. So that makes the multivitamin makes sure that you get your nutrition, and then you just eat your calories for energy, right? And then you got a little glass of wine to use in moderation, and then they got little stairs going up the side of the pyramid showing like daily activity and whatnot. So,
where can you find that? Where you can just Google that or something?
Yeah, look up healthy eating pyramid.
Okay. And then, so when we talk about how do vitamins actually work for the body, because, we take them just as a daily thing, like, okay, it's supposed to be helping, but how do they actually help?
Well, it depends on which vitamin. Each vitamin plays a certain role. It helps with deficiency. Now, there's different levels of nutrition intake that you need to be aware of. So the recommended dietary allowance, it's really, really old, right? It's ancient. It's essentially, I'm joking when I say ancient, it's in the 20th century, but that was really for deficiency diseases. And it was based on a 150-pound active male on a 2,000-calorie diet.
God damn.
Right. So it's not like what about the 250-pound male?
Yeah.
What about the 120-pound female? Yeah. There's it's a little bit different nutrient intake for each person.
Right.
And it's really for deficiency. It's to keep people from having things like rickets, polio, scurvy, beriberi. You ever known anybody have any of those? No. Right. That's deficiency. Like we live in a nation of abundance. I like to say we're overweight and starving to death. That makes sense.
Yeah.
We're overweight and starving to death because we don't have enough nutrients, but our waistline keeps expanding.
Yeah.
Right?
You got all the food. Yeah. Okay.
Got all the food. We're overweight and starving to death. So, for instance, you got your daily reference intake. So more of like optimal wellness, and then your upper limits, your upper tolerance limits, which means that you can take that nutrient up to that level without anything becoming toxic. Some things don't even have an upper limit established, like vitamin B12. Right? If people
that's for the energy.
Energy, right? Okay. It helps you. The food that you eat, it helps you take the food that you eat and make it into energy, usable energy, right? So, but if people have like chronic fatigue syndrome, things like that, they'll go get injections. You look like 20,000% of vitamin B12, right? Like whatever your body doesn't use, it's water soluble. You're gonna get rid of it.
Flush it out. Okay.
Vitamin C, for instance, to keep people from having scurvy. In the Navy, they used to give, which is a vitamin C deficiency, it's about 60 milligrams of vitamin C is 100% of the RDA, right? So they used to give sailors limes back in the day, right? You used to give sailors limes to prevent scurvy. That gives them about that 60 milligrams of vitamin C. That's why sailors, if you heard, they're called limeys. That's really where that comes from.
Because they just took all the lines to prevent scurvy and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So your optimal wellness, it's more 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C. Help prevent things like cancer, heart disease, right? Those diseases sound a little bit more familiar to you, diabetes, things like that. So, and then the upper limits is above 5,000 milligrams a day. You can get some gastrointestinal upset and whatnot. So I would suggest people to take that dispersed throughout the day. I take about 3 grams a day.
And then do you ever, have you ever transformed, I'm sure you have, transforming someone's dietary, needs as a wellness coach? How do you go about, assessing that situation and going about, this is where we need to be and this is where you are and this is where we need to be? How do you go about assessing that?
Well, I use the Kaizen approach. I got to find out where they are first. So I do an assessment of like what their nutrition looks like right now, right? I have them do a 3-day food log and through discovery process and whatnot.
Yeah.
Right. I see where you are.
3 days of McDonald's, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then one thing I like to do, because a lot of people don't relate to the macronutrients, your protein, fat, and carbs. They don't know how much they're having of each one, right? If they're not tracking, most people don't track, right? And there's a lot of great tracking devices and apps and whatnot out there now, but in the 90s, we had to write everything in a notebook. That's tedious. Right?
Yeah.
But what I'll do is I'll have them write that down, and I'll take a highlighter, and I'll highlight all the predominantly carbohydrate sources, different highlighter with all the protein, different highlighter with all the fat, and then I'll show it to them, and they see there's
all yellow.
Typically they're like, oh, yellow. Okay, I need a lot of carbs, don't I?
We don't understand that. Like we eat a lot of carbs, we eat a lot of fats, we eat a lot of like greasy, like all of that stuff. Like you can eat a day's worth of food in one meal. Like you go to Bojangles or McDonald's and stuff like 100%. That. And I'm like, if it wasn't for like MMA and training, I wouldn't have known that. I just kept eating, getting fat. I'll show you a picture after how it was before I started training. Oh my gosh. And I was just eating tons of food a day. And I'm not saying like I'm like 4 or 5 plates. I'm talking about just regular 2 to 3 times.
Right.
It's like 3,000 calories.
100%.
And it's just messing me up.
Yeah, you get like a Big Mac or just a regular fry, not even anything big, not even supersize it, right? And like a regular drink, you're at 1,600 calories, easy. You eat 1,600 calories clean, that's a fair amount of food.
Yes,
right. That's a fair amount of food,
and you're full. You're really full after that. So
absolutely. I
think like what makes people actually, people say you are what you eat, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes like when you eat certain foods, you feel sluggish, slower, not there. Right. What makes that happen?
Well, there's a couple of different things that's happening, right? So a lot of people, they lean towards processed foods. They lean towards like they've trained their taste buds to only want high sugary or high fat foods, right?
Right.
And a lot of times it's trans fats, which is man-made stuff like that we really shouldn't even be taking very much of anyway.
Right.
And what happens is when you take in those high carbohydrate meals, those high sugary foods, you spike your blood sugar, right? You can't keep a high blood sugar because that'll lead to diabetes, right?
Right.
Your body knows that. Your body doesn't care about your fitness goals. It cares about homeostasis, which is a point of balance where nothing else is changing. It just wants to survive. Your body just wants to survive. Doesn't care what you're trying to do to it. So your pancreas secretes insulin. That tells your body to get rid of that sugar in the blood. Some of the carbohydrates or glycogen goes to your muscles. So you get muscle glycogen, liver glycogen, a little bit for your brain for focus and energy and whatnot. And then the rest of those carbohydrates, stored carbohydrates, it's spillage. What do you think spillage is in our bodies?
Shit.
Okay. We store it. I wish it was waste. I wish it was waste. Whereas, like, if we eat too much, we're just going to get rid of all of it. But if we eat too much, and we got 5 10-gallon buckets, 5 10-gallon buckets, it's 50 gallons, right?
Yes.
You throw 100 gallons over top of it, how much is it going to catch?
A lot of that. I don't know. I'm not good at math
50,
right now.
50. It's going to catch 50.
50.
It's going to catch 50 gallons. The other 50 gallons.
50 gallons. Yes. You're throwing math at me. It's too early. I'm like, throwing math at me too early.
He's like, wait, I feel like it's a trick question.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
So it's catching the 50 gallons, but then the other 50 is just spillage
on
our bodies.
Okay.
Body fat.
Okay. Oh, and that's how it.
That's how things grow because we're eating more than what we can sustain.
Right.
Right? Now, if you've got a lot more muscle, you've got a lot more capacity, right? It's not a 10-gallon bucket anymore. Now it goes to 15, 20-gallon. I got one of my clients, a guy named, he's a professional bodybuilder, Zach Romano. He talks about, he eats about 7,000 calories a day.
Yeah. How much does he weigh?
He's about 250.
250? Okay.
Yeah, he's big bodybuilder guy.
Yeah, about to say that's.
But he's got a lot of muscle.
Yeah.
And he's burning it off, like in low body fat too, right? 7,000 to 8,000 calories a day. He talked about like he's filling out a little bit, carbs and all that. I said, how many carbs are you taking in a day? He's like, about 700. I said, oh. If I took in 700 carbs a day, my stomach would be about the size of this table, right? Because I don't have that much muscle. I'm not going to burn that off, right? Michael Phelps, though, how much he was eating a day, he was eating 8,000 to 10,000 calories a day because he was so active, right?
Sheesh. And then you just burn it off.
He's burning it off. His metabolism is through the roof, right? You see Michael Phelps, he was like shredded and lean and working out all the time. And he'd eat a dozen eggs and a pound of bacon and all that stuff for breakfast, right?
Yeah.
You obviously got to train your stomach to be able to take in that much food too. But yeah, so what happens is when you get that high blood sugar and then the insulin comes, your sugar drops. So you're at the bottom of the roller coaster, right? And you've got low blood sugar. You're feeling like lethargic. You're feeling drained, right? You've had that low blood sugar. You feel like your head's in the clouds. You're like, man, what did I do with my keys? Like, I know I came in this room for something. What did I come in here for? And so then you're craving. What do you think you're craving when you got low blood sugar? Sugar. So you have a cup of coffee with the sugar in it, or you go to the vending machine and you get a Snickers bar, or you eat again and you pick yourself back up. And you're high on the roller coaster again. And then all day long, you're just riding that roller coaster.
Wow.
Versus eating a lower glycemic carbohydrate. So the glycemic index is how fast carbohydrates are absorbed into your body. So you eat a lower glycemic food with some higher levels of protein and some good fats, and it's more like a rolling hill. After about 3 to 4 hours, it's time to eat again. And then you eat again, and you feel you're not bouncing off the walls with energy and then down in the dumps. You're just like, you're good to go. You got a good level of energy all throughout the day. It'll change your life.
And so a lot of people, I guess it would be easier for people that would know, but how do you get around, I guess man-made food? How do you get around getting that, or what's man-made, or what's like, okay, not man-made, or something that's grown? How do you know? Obviously, like, because not even all organic, right, is organic, right?
Well, if they've got that on the package, there's certain things certain levels that they can consider themselves organic, but like, is it certified and all that is a different story. But of course, reading the labels, doing research, finding out about certain foods. I like to say, if you're looking at the other ingredients in packaged foods and whatnot, you're seeing all these chemical names you can't pronounce and whatnot. So you're leaning away from being natural.
Right.
Like, try to go for natural. Now, obviously, it's got vitamins and whatnot in there too that some people would have a hard time, saying riboflavin or whatever.
Right.
But so research and label reading is the first step. You got to get interested in wanting to make the change first, though. You can't force somebody to change. That's what I talked about, like the behavioral psychology. Like, if somebody doesn't want to change, they're not going to change, right? In coaching, we talk about the readiness to change model, right? So there's pre-contemplation, contemplation, action, and maintenance. Pre-contemplation, the person, they're not even thinking about changing. It's, why would I ever stop smoking, right? Why would I do that? Contemplation, they're saying, in the next 3 to 6 months, I think I would like to make a change. Maybe I'd like to stop smoking. Action, they're already moving forward in it. And then after they've been doing it for a while, it's, okay, how do I not move backwards? How do I maintain this? Right, so it's all psychology.
And so where would you say a person should start? Because I want to get into that whole psychology thing.
Sure.
Anyways, where do you think a person should start in their health journey? Like, as far as research, researching the right thing, where should we start? Because I think a lot of people, going back to the whole mental thing, it's like, a lot of people like, they see you with the results, and like, I can never get that, never get there. Mm-hmm. You just don't know where to. A lot of people don't even know where to start.
Yeah,
yeah. They're just like, oh, we just got here doing mm-hmm. this. I was like 200 pounds when I started training. I'm like 150 right now. Like I'm 150, coach. It's just like, where do you start? I think that's where the challenge comes.
Yeah. A lot of people try to take on too many changes at one time. So they're like, oh, man, he lost 50 pounds. I want to get that 50-pound goal. All right, 5 months, 50-pound goal. Here we go. Versus like starting small, getting that habit under your belt, and then shifting into another habit, right? Most people are dehydrated. I think a great place for everybody to start is to increase the amount of water that they drink and try to decrease the amount of fluids that they drink that has calories, right? I do a little thing at my events, and I hold up all these bags of sugar, different grams. This is 42 grams, this is 27 grams, what have you. And it's basically different drinks. And I have them do a little matching thing for this is a Mountain Dew, this is a Coke, this is a Starbucks coffee, what have you. This is a Gatorade or Capri Sun. Match them up. Not very many people get more than 5 right. All right. Drinking your calories is the fastest way to hold on to extra body fat because it doesn't satisfy you, right? You're not full after you drink something.
Right.
You could still eat after that.
Right.
But you just pounded 200 calories, 300 calories into your diet. If you would have eaten that 300 calories, it's a different story.
Right.
Right. So I remember I had a friend of mine, Amy, and she made some changes and whatnot. I hadn't seen her in a couple months, and I'm like, man, you're like, Amy, you look great. Like, what you been doing? You been working out? Nah. I said, oh, did you go on a diet or something? No, I didn't go on a diet. I said, okay, like you lost like 10 pounds. Like, what's going on? She said, I stopped drinking Coke. I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah, that's it. I
didn't do anything. I just stopped drinking Coke.
Right.
She must have been drinking a fair amount, but, like that. Seriously.
Yeah.
That's a calorie reduction. And if you have the same activity level, didn't change anything, and you just reduced your calories, 300, 400 calories, and that's only, what's that, 2 Cokes?
Right.
In a day? 400 calories? Come on.
Yeah.
In 2 months, you got 8 pounds off your body.
And just imagine if they worked out with it too.
You work out with it, boom, you jump it up 10, 12 pounds.
Yeah. And I tell people a lot, there's really no shortcuts to this. Like, they're like, they want to know, they'll ask me, I want to learn how to cut weight. No, you don't. You don't want to know, because that's not what it is.
Right.
Cutting weight is for a certain thing,
a
certain point in time. That's where the cutting weight comes from, not for longevity.
Right.
That's
not sustainable. That's not a lifestyle change.
No, it's
not. Would you want to cut weight every week?
No, hell no. I don't even want to cut weight for the fight.
Yeah, that's right. Like, that's why it's much better for like people to kind of gradually get into the weight that they need to be, and then you're within 10 pounds, Manny, within 10 pounds.
Yes,
well, okay. You got to be within 10 pounds. Yeah. All right, so within 10 pounds, and then you're just cutting those 10 pounds in order to get to your
fight.
You
do that in an hour, but
hardly any time.
Yeah,
yeah. So,
but it's just like, no, there's no shortcuts to this, as you know too, as well. It's no shortcuts to this. You have to discipline yourself. You have to say no to certain things, usually what you like, and try to make it. Like, once you cut weight and stuff like that, the weight comes back on just like that. But if you gradually keep cutting it down, it takes way longer for it to come back. Granted, you can't just eat what you want and still think you're going to be the same thing and not doing the precautionary things to keep that weight. Yeah. But it will take a slower time putting the weight back on. Right. You like maybe you can have like 1 or 2 cheat days instead of like, all right, if I eat one, then it's over for me. Like, you're crossing that line,
Exactly. And that's the what you just described is the Kaizen approach. Mm-hmm. That's the gradual changes. And when you make those gradual changes, it's your brain likes that better. Your brain likes that better because it's not a shock, right? So get a little bit nerdy with you. So what happens is when you see this big looming goal, oh, I want to lose 50 pounds, right? It creates a fear response in your brain. So it's fight, flight, or freeze, right? And so it activates the amygdala, an old portion of your brain that says, okay, I got to fight, I got to run, I got to freeze up, something's going to happen. And so it shuts down the front of your brain with your frontal cortex where you make all your logical rational decisions, right? So no longer you're like, the chocolate cake, I need the chocolate cake. Why do you need the chocolate cake? Well, it's going to make me happy. That's not logical at all. That chocolate cake is not going to make you happy, but like it activates all these other things, these all neuro associations that you have, and you smell it. Smells can take us back, can't they? Big time. Like you smell the chocolate cake and suddenly, boom, you're taken back to your grandmother's kitchen when you were 10 years old, and you could walk in and you smell the chocolate cake, and it's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, good feelings, happy, oh, yay. Right. It's all an illusion, right? So we gotta start to take more control of our own choices and look at it in a rational way. So we do that by gradually making those changes.
Okay. So, let's get on this, the whole neurological mind aspect of it. What do you, as a wellness coach, what is some of the things that you do to help things, stick in people's minds when you're teaching them about their goals?
Yeah. So the first thing I like to do is I like to find out where somebody is. And I had coaches have coaches, right? You have to. If you want to get better at something, you got to have somebody who's pulling you along too. So I was working with a life coach a while back, great guy, Bob Demers. He's amazing, right? And he said to me, every time we started a session, he would say to me, pay attention to your tension, right? He was trained under Tension Management Institute. And he said, pay attention to your tension. I said, what do you mean by that? He's like, what's coming up right now? Different areas of your life. Where are you feeling the most tension in your life right now? Because that's what we're going to talk. That's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to start with. Because if not, then this other thing, this looming big in your brain, is like underneath the surface. It's like a volcano. We're sitting here talking about all these other surface level things, and this volcano's brewing underneath, right? So in the Kaizen energy philosophy, as I eventually, expand out, with life coaching and all that stuff, right? So I just did some training with Tony Robbins' company, the Robbins Madonna's Training Center, to become a life coach. And so it started out in health and wellness, and then it's just branching out to all the other aspects of a person's life. It's like your home and finances, your art, which is that creative expression I feel that everybody has. Mine's writing. It might be, cooking for you, or gardening, or photography, or what have you, and then it's your business, your health, your education, your relationships, and your spirituality, those 8 different areas. And so I have people focus on and think about those different areas of what's coming to the surface. Where's your tension coming about? They're like, oh man, I was having some problems with my kid the other day. Okay, what's happening? And then we're going to go into that to find out, okay, what are they looking to change? Where is the ultimate goal that they're trying to get to in those different areas? What's the gap right now? And then how do we close that gap?
Okay. Wow. I mean, that just makes a whole lot of sense, especially when we're talking about, the surface level. When we're talking about like the surface level things, the deep rooted stuff that we have doesn't even just compare to it. Yeah. So and then it's kind of hard to retain stuff or take stuff from other people. Yeah. So that just makes a whole lot of sense. So you was with Tony. How was that? How was that class? That Tony Robinson.
Oh, it's Tony Robbins.
He's been doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, not that, but I'm just saying. I know he's been doing motivational speaking for like a long time, right?
Yeah, and he goes so much deeper than that. A lot of people think they're like, he's like a motivational speaker, right? And I'm like, it's so much more than that. He's like a change agent, right? So he teaches people how to. I tell people that what he said is he helps to raise the scales off of people's eyes. He feels that people are walking around in illusions, and he helps to dehypnotize them. Right. The hypnosis of culture and media and marketing and their upbringing and the wounds that they have or what have you, so that they can actually think more clearly and decide who they want to be in the world and what they're doing about that.
Okay.
Right. I mean, that guy started in the 70s, like with NLP. It was neuro-linguistic programming, and he's helping people like change themselves and whatnot. But he's evolved so much beyond that now. I actually went to one of his events back in 2004. It was called Unleash the Power Within. And the first night, right, there was a metaphor for overcoming procrastination and moving into your personal power. And we walked on 1,500-degree coals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so it literally, you put yourself into this state, right? And it's a whole process that he teaches you and whatnot. You put yourself into this state where, like, it doesn't matter what's in front of you, you're getting to the goal. And I mean, you're chanting this little thing. It was like cool moss. It wasn't anything like, it was like cool moss, and you're walking. And I'm like, literally, I'm walking on those coals. I didn't even feel them. I felt like I was walking on cold grass. And so I'm like, but at the end, like, if you got to like celebrate, and they spray your feet off with water and whatnot, and you're jumping up and down, and I'm looking back and like, I just did that.
Yeah.
It means nothing. The event's not about the coals.
Yeah.
That's a metaphor for like these obstacles are in your life. They're going to be tough. They're going to be hot. They're going to want to hurt you. And you're focused on where you're trying to go to, right? If you focus on the coals, you're going to get burned. And that's one thing you teach. And there were a couple people who had some burns because they're scared or whatever. And they're like, you go too slow. I heard a guy say, when you're going through hell, keep going. Don't stop. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You go through. Mm-hmm. Get to the other side. Yeah. So it's a great metaphor. But it was amazing, absolutely amazing. I had so many breakthroughs at that event.
That was dope.
I came back, man, like changed so many things.
Right.
Man, I tell you what, using his principles. Like I went down to Orlando. I used to work with where the Orlando Magic training facility is and all that. This huge place called the RDV Sportsplex, right? RDV was Rich DeVos, one of the guys that started Amway. So he owns the Orlando Magic, right?
Oh, wow.
So I learned at that point there's a big difference between rich and wealthy.
And then
Forbes list 400 or whatever.
Yeah.
The athletes, I mean, I got great opportunity to train a lot of professional athletes and whatnot. So those guys were rich. They had some money. Yeah. The guys writing their checks were wealthy.
Yeah, the real wealthy.
So down there, all these, just back to 2004, all these hurricanes came through. Charlie and all these 5 hurricanes came through Florida back then. Worst hurricane season they'd had in 50 years. And I was, by the end of it, lost 2 apartments. One had for mold damage and whatnot from the hurricanes.
All the rain and stuff like that.
My money's dropping down, dwindling the savings and all that. So by the end of 2004, I was homeless. And my friends got their monies together and whatnot, got me a plane ticket, came back up to the Charlotte area, and built my life up from that point. A year later, just using the principles I learned from Tony Robbins, I was in a 4-bedroom house with 2 cars and had my own business and all that. A year later, so
that's crazy. Man, yeah. Congratulations to you, though. By the way, that's a phenomenal story.
I appreciate it, but it's really not. It's not just me. You couldn't do it if I didn't have my friends, right, who helped me get there. I didn't have mentorship of somebody who was where I wanted to be, and I'm learning and applying those principles and whatnot. But I mean, you gotta thank yourself for actually putting it into action. Did you ever see the interview with Snoop Dogg, where he's accepting an award or something? Oh yeah, right? And he's like, last but not least, I want to thank me. I want to thank me for all the long nights. Exactly. I want to thank me for pushing through. Yeah, so that's
a real thing.
It's a real thing. You gotta. It's not like to put yourself on a pedestal, but you can't you can recognize everybody else in your life, but you gotta sometimes you gotta say, because sometimes somebody will pat you on the back, sometimes somebody won't.
Right.
So you gotta have enough self-confidence and self-belief to say, you know what? Hell yeah, I did this too, right? Give yourself a little congratulations too, not but yeah. You feel me?
Yeah, I get you. I get you. So how would that translate to athletes? Athletes maybe coming off a loss.
Yeah.
Just feeling like they haven't trying to reach their full potential, trying to, be the best. Like how would that translate to athletes?
Well, Coach Tom said to me like a while back, I did a IBJJF tournament, right? And I probably went into it a little bit too cocky, right? Because I felt like I'm like, man, I'm gonna be stronger than these guys. I'm gonna cut my weight down and like have an advantage and whatnot. But because I'm a nutritionist and I know how to do this stuff and cut the weight and everything properly, I probably did it too late. So at those tournaments, you weigh in and then you step on the mat. Right. So there's not a lot of refuel time. Like, in MMA, like you got a whole day to refuel it. Right. So I get there and I'm like, had some issues with my kids. I couldn't find my wallet, all this stuff. So like mentally, I'm going to the tournament like stressed, and that's draining you too. Right. And so, kind of gassed out a little bit, at the tournament. And Tom said to me, he said, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Right? Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Like, what did you learn from it? If you don't focus on the loss as something that's putting you down, but like, what can I learn from that situation to move forward? The only way you lose is if you quit. So athletes coming off a loss, you're like, what can I get from this? What can I take from this loss so that I can be better next time I go back out? Like I said, the only time they lose is if they stop playing.
Don't stop. Right. And then that's all that black belts are. That's all that Tony Robinson is. I know he's one of the – I know that's anybody in that type of position that said you couldn't do it and just quit just because somebody said something or you feel like you couldn't go, those are losses. Yeah. But if you don't – black belts, didn't quit when they got submitted 100 million times. Tony Robinson didn't quit when somebody said, bro, like, this is not helping me or something like that. Something along those lines or
100%.
Just didn't quit.
A black belt is just a white belt that never quit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Kaizen Energy is all that is. Just never quit, right?
Never quit. And so the slogan for my business is always moving forward from pain to performance. Right?
I love that.
I appreciate that.
I love that, man. And it just fits your philosophy. It fits how I even interact with you.
Yeah.
Just how I first met you. We met in the gym.
Right.
Just off the bond and everything like that. That just fits where I see Kai's Energy going.
Yeah.
Just talk a little bit more about Kai's Energy and like how's it going about, where is it located, and everything like that.
So Kaizen Energy is kind of like an umbrella for several different offerings, right? So we do health and wellness services, coaching and consulting, and then speaking and writing, right? So I'm working on a book right now called One Small Step, Kaizen Keys to Personal Transformation. And that's going to end up being a series of books, right, based off of those 8 different areas. One small step for your health, one small step for your finances, so on and so forth. So the health and wellness services, there's a place called the Office Gym in Lake Wiley, and this is the first of multiple locations. There's franchising, multiple locations it's going to build out into. And so I've got the Pain to Performance lab there, right? The number 2, Pain to Performance. And that's where there's training, nutrition consulting, massage, body work, all that, and bringing on other therapists, like the doctor of physical therapy is going to come, for adjustments and cupping and scraping and all that stuff to help people get better, right? And that's going to lead out to multiple locations as well. And then there's coaching. This is wellness coaching, nutrition coaching, life coaching. And then we do consulting to other health and wellness businesses to help them get more out of what they're trying to do with their business, right? Sales, negotiating, moving into digital marketing. And then I do some speaking events, hiring a speaker's agency to help promote that because I don't want to have to, that's time to help promote yourself. And it's weird to kind of promote yourself. Like you call up a corporation, you're like, yeah, let me tell you about me, versus an agent who's representing you. And so the consulting with the digital marketing, that actually came about as a result of COVID. Because in the beginning of COVID, I mean, personal training, massage therapy, live speaking events, how much of that was going on in the beginning of COVID? No. None of it.
None of it.
None of it.
No.
And I used to joke around, and I would say my 3 weaknesses are cars, computers, and construction, right? So I wasn't into like I barely even used the internet and email. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, but I had to learn. I had to pivot and learn from that. Start to learn how to push myself out into. I mean, didn't even really use social media a lot, so starting to get a little bit more into that. So I'll make sure we'll give people the contact and whatnot on when you post it or whatever.
Yes.
So what I can do in consulting other health and wellness companies who are trying to move into that space is I've been there. I did a course with Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins called the Knowledge Broker Blueprint, right? And it's all about moving into creating mastermind workshops and moving into that digital space too. And he said, you don't have to be like this super high level expert in order to help somebody else, right? If you're reading a book and I'm 5 chapters ahead of you, I can teach you that book, right? Right. So you're several steps ahead. You know all the pitfalls, and you're really close to what's going on right now. The expert who's been doing it for 30 years maybe has a hard time relating to the very, very beginning person. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because like, man, I don't even remember. What was it like? I didn't even have to deal with those things 30 years ago.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That makes sense.
You know, Tony Robbins, like he talks about now. Yeah. Like moving into the digital, he don't know anything about that. He's already there because he's got a team of people who's like helping him to get there. Right. But the way he started, Tony Robbins, it was like, you got to pay all this money to get billboard ads and like, you know, you got to rent out a hotel and like send out all these direct mail flyers and whatnot, 500,000 people, and you get 7 people show up to your event.
Exactly.
You spent $5,000, you get 7 people there.
Right.
And then you just try to build on from that. But he joked, said that like his first event, he had this big hotel room and like 7 people showed up and sitting around all spread out. And he's like, everybody come up front. You know? And he said he delivered that as if he had 500 people there. You know, and that's what you got to do. You got to build a little bit of time, but we can move in lightning speed now with the internet and digital marketing and all that. So learning sales funnels and all this stuff. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. It's fun. Yeah. It's fun, but it's different.
That's what's up, Brad. Man, this has been great. I'm glad you came up here.
Thank you.
I always want to end off my podcast with something positive.
Yeah.
So this one is for. I want you to give some advice to an athlete that's coming off a loss.
Some advice to an athlete that's coming off a loss. All right, so I would say you gotta know who you are, like know what your identity is, right, and get really connected with what your identity is. That you are not your loss, right, and that like Coach Tom said, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Know who your identity is, know where you want to go to, and realize that you're failing forward. You're failing forward. Every loss is a step forward towards where you want to go to if you keep adjusting.
That's great. I appreciate that. I'm gonna take that because that's for me. So I'm gonna take that was right on the money, and I appreciate
yes, sir.
Appreciate you for that. Give everybody the contact information, how they can reach you, and everything like that.
Absolutely,
social media and everything.
Absolutely. So, you know, like I said, pretty new social media accounts, but it's Instagram is at Kaizenergy Coaching. That's KAIZENERGY Coaching. And it's also at Brad Robinson 2001. My website is kaizenergy.net. So that same spelling, kaizenergy.net, for sure.
Okay, and they can get in contact with you all from there.
Right through there. Just shoot me an email. There's links and whatnot on there. You can shoot me an email. Reach out, DM me on Instagram. You know, if you have a question or something like that, I'd love to give back.
Okay, appreciate you. Brad Robinson, this is a Push Fit podcast, and we're out.